The invisible economic genocide, how Black women are being systematically erased from America's workforce. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I recently had the extraordinary privilege of interviewing LeAnne Dolce, the visionary force behind the Soft Girl Era podcast. For those who haven't yet discovered her transformative work, LeAnne has emerged as one of the most authentic and necessary voices in media today. She's created a sanctuary where high achieving Black us women can reject the burnout culture that's been marketed to them as success and instead embrace lives of genuine fulfillment without sacrificing their ambitions. What makes LeAnne truly exceptional isn't just her brilliant insights or her compassionate approach, it's her fearless commitment to exposing uncomfortable truths that others would prefer to leave hidden. Her podcast doesn't just entertain, it liberates. So it doesn't just inform, it transforms. In a media landscape that so often silences or distorts Black women's experiences, LeAnne Dolce stands as a beacon of truth, integrity, and revolutionary self care. What struck me most profoundly in my conversation with LeAnne was her ability to peel back the layers of seemingly positive economic headlines and reveal the disturbing reality lurking beneath. Today, I want to share with you the eye opening insights from our interview, insights that will fundamentally challenge everything you think you know about America's economic recovery and the true state of employment in 2025. We've all seen the celebratory headlines. Unemployment remains stable. Economy shows remarkable resilience. Job market holds steady despite global challenges. These headlines paint a reassuring picture of an America that's weathered the storm and emerged stronger. But as LeAnne Dolce powerfully revealed, these broad statistics are masking a targeted economic assault on one specific demographic: Black women. Here's what those triumphant headlines aren't telling you. In April 2025 alone, Black women lost 38,000 jobs. Their unemployment rate surged a full percentage point from 5.1% to 6.1% in just 30 days. This wasn't some statistical anomaly or random fluctuation. It represents real human beings, mothers, daughters, sisters, community pillars, suddenly finding themselves without income, without security, without the dignity that meaningful employment provides. Let that sink in for a moment. While economists and politicians were celebrating economic stability, 38,000 Black women were sitting at kitchen tables across America wondering how they would pay next month's rent. They were looking into their children's eyes, calculating how to stretch dwindling resources. They were updating resumes, searching job boards, and facing the growing realization that the doors of opportunity were being systematically closed to them. What makes this situation even more disturbing is the pattern LeAnne identified. This isn't happening in isolation. It's part of a troubling trend that began in early 2024, coinciding with specific policy changes at both federal and corporate levels. Most notably, Black women workers at the federal level have declined by an estimated 33% within just 1 year. Compare that to the overall federal workforce reduction of just 3.7% during the same period. The disparity isn't just significant, it's staggering. When we look at numbers like these, we have to ask ourselves, what's really happening here? Is this simply an unfortunate coincidence? Or are we witnessing the results of deliberate policy choices? The evidence LeAnne shared points decisively toward the latter. Following initiatives to roll back diversity, equity, and inclusion programs at the federal level, many corporations quickly followed suit. The timeline matches perfectly with the beginning of Black women's rising unemployment rates. As economist William Michael Cunningham noted, and I'm quoting directly from LeAnne's interview, the unusual nature of this increase in Black women's unemployment is a testament to and a direct result of the anti DEI and anti Black focus of the new administration's policies. This challenges a fundamental assumption many of us hold about economic statistics. We tend to believe that broad economic indicators like the unemployment rate tell us how everyone is doing. But LeAnne's research reveals how these aggregate numbers can hide targeted economic harm affecting specific communities. A stable overall unemployment rate doesn't mean everyone is doing well. It might simply mean that the gains of some are masking the losses of others. Think about what this means in practical terms. When we say Black women lost 38,000 jobs, we're talking about 38,000 individuals who now face impossible choices. Do they dip into savings, if they have any, to cover next month's rent? Do they postpone medical care? Do they tell their children they can't afford school supplies or new clothes? These aren't abstract statistics. They represent real human suffering that remains invisible in our national economic conversation. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, April 2025. Employment report told a story that mainstream media largely ignored. While they celebrated the overall stability, they failed to mention that Black women's unemployment increased by 106,000 people. Organizations like Creative Investment Research had to fight to get these disparities highlighted in major publications. Their research revealed a troubling pattern of increasing unemployment for Black women that began in February 2024, a pattern that perfectly coincides with specific policy shifts at the federal level. And this employment crisis doesn't exist in isolation. LeAnne highlighted how it compounds with another persistent problem, the gender pay gap. In 2025, women overall still earn only 83 cents for every dollar earned by men. This gap has barely changed in over 2 decades, moving just 4 cents since 2003. For Black women, this creates a double burden: fewer job opportunities and lower pay when employed. The situation becomes even more troubling when we look at how the pay gap evolves over a woman's career. While younger women aged 25, 34 fare slightly better at 95 cents per dollar, this gap widens dramatically as women age. This means that precisely when women should be reaching their peak earning potential and building wealth for retirement, they face increasing economic disadvantage. What's particularly valuable about LeAnne's approach is that she doesn't just identify problems, she helps us understand their root causes. The gender pay gap, she explained, is influenced by multiple factors: occupational segregation that channels women into lower paying fields, the motherhood penalty that punishes women for having children, and a persistent lack of pay transparency that makes discrimination harder to detect and address. Similarly, the current employment crisis facing Black women isn't random. It's connected to specific policy decisions and corporate practices. When diversity initiatives are dismantled, when inclusive hiring practices are abandoned, when workplace protections are weakened, these choices have real consequences for real people. The federal workforce statistics that LeAnne shared are particularly revealing. Black women workers at the federal level have declined by an estimated 33% within the last year. This isn't happening in a vacuum. Following the administration's initiatives to strike down diversity, equity, and inclusion programs at the federal level, many corporations quickly followed suit. Researchers have established a clear timeline connecting these policy changes to employment outcomes, providing irrefutable evidence of how policy decisions can have targeted negative effects on specific demographics. Now, you might be wondering, why should everyone care about this issue? Even if you're not a Black woman, why should these statistics matter to you? The answer is simple but profound. Because an economy that systematically excludes or disadvantages any group is fundamentally unsound. It's like building a house on a cracked foundation. You might not notice the problem immediately, but eventually the entire structure becomes unstable. When we allow discrimination, whether explicit or implicit, to determine who gets hired, who gets promoted, and who gets paid fairly, we're not just harming those individuals, we're depriving our economy and our society of the full contributions of talented, educated, and capable people. We're wasting human potential on an enormous scale, and that affects everyone. Moreover, as LeAnne powerfully articulated in our interview, economic justice isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet, it's about human dignity. It's about creating a society where everyone has the opportunity to support themselves and their families, to use their talents productively, to build security for the future. But awareness alone isn't enough. As LeAnne emphasized, addressing these issues requires both individual action and collective advocacy. On an individual level, we can support Black women owned businesses, creating economic opportunities within communities hit hardest by these employment trends. We can advocate for transparent hiring practices in our workplaces. We can document discriminatory patterns we observe and speak up when we see unfairness in action. Collectively, we need to challenge the policies and practices that are creating these disparities. We need to demand that our elected officials and corporate leaders explain why Black women are losing jobs at such alarming rates. We need to insist on accountability and change. This isn't about politics, it's about basic fairness and economic common sense. When we allow discrimination to determine economic outcomes, we all lose. When we ensure that everyone has a fair shot at economic security, we all benefit. I want to leave you with a powerful truth that LeAnne shared during our conversation. She said, when you systematically exclude Black women from economic opportunity, you're not just harming individuals, you're dismantling the backbone of communities. Because when Black women thrive economically, entire families rise. When Black women have economic power, entire neighborhoods transform. When Black women lead in business and government, entire systems become more just. The data is clear. The pattern is undeniable. We are witnessing nothing less than an invisible economic genocide, the systematic erasure of Black women from America's workforce. And it's happening right under our noses, concealed by reassuring headlines about overall economic stability. I challenge each of you today to become economic truth tellers. Question the headlines, dig deeper into the data, ask who is benefiting and who is being left behind. Use your voice, your vote, your purchasing power, and your influence to demand an economy that works for everyone. Because a society that tolerates the targeted economic destruction of any group isn't just failing that group, it's failing its own highest ideals. It's betraying the promise of equal opportunity that supposedly defines us as a nation. The next time you hear that unemployment remains stable, remember the 38,000 Black women who lost their jobs in a single month while that headline was being written. Remember, their names may not make the news, but their suffering is real. Their exclusion diminishes us all. Will you stand by and watch as this invisible economic genocide continues? Or will you join me, join LeAnne, in demanding an economy worthy of our highest values, an economy where no one is expendable, an economy that recognizes the full humanity and potential of every person? The choice is yours. The time is now. Thank you.